Okay, so um, I am so happy to be here today. And I want to say first, before I start, thank you so much for the music today. Anyone who had anything to do with the music, it is so perfect to support this talk. And you'll see as we go along how perfect it is. We were commenting before the service on how wonderful it is the way spirit works. And I know this stuff works, but I never cease to be amazed. So it's just wonderful. Thank you. So before we say goodbye to Deepak Chopra's book, The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, I wanted to summarize it for us. And in doing that, I always want to think of practical applications for the spiritual principles we talk about. So first, let me briefly remind you of what the seven laws are. Law one is the law of pure potentiality. It says that at our core, we are pure consciousness, creative consciousness, and live in a place of infinite possibilities and creativity. Law two is the law of giving. It's about the flow in the universe, the constant interaction of giving and receiving, and that everything in the universe is made up of this constant exchange. Law three is the law of karma, or cause and effect. It's about both cause and effect because every action creates a flow of energy that comes back in like kind. What you sow is what you reap. Law four is the law of least effort. This is the law about non-resistance, no resistance to what truly is. Law five is the law of intention and desire. The idea that there is a God substance everywhere in everything, and within the pure potentiality or pure consciousness, intention and desire assist in organizing the manifestation of everything good in our lives. Law six is the law of detachment. This is the true wealth consciousness. It's the ability to let go of everything and to be open to having anything you want, anytime you want. And to do this with the very least effort. It is the upside of uncertainty. The law of dharma, or purpose in life, is the seventh spiritual law, and it blends your unique talent with service to others. So now let's get practical. What do we have more in common right now, actually with the entire world, than the COVID-19 pandemic? And it's such a unique and universal experience for us that it just begs for practical application of some spiritual principle. It, along with everything else that has surrounded it during this time, is so unique for us. And I do wish, actually, that I had $1 for every time I've heard the word unprecedented in the last 6 months. Everything that's happened has been unprecedented. Life during this time has been, to say the least, full of inconvenience and challenge. And at worst, it has been downright scary. It literally changed our whole lives on a universal level, on a dime. I often say life changes on a dime, but this was just ridiculous. Everything changed seemingly overnight. Our routines, our activity, our leisure, and the most basic of needs, toilet paper. Was anyone like me? You kind of got down to the bare bones of your toilet paper and had to send out a request, an SOS for toilet paper. It's just been crazy. And everything looks a totally different way than it did as we ushered in New Year's 2020. The mix of issues and challenges that have arisen have created the most thought-provoking environment of any time since the late 1960s. And if you don't remember what was going on in that time period, then just Google 1968 to 71 in the US and remind yourself of that history. We survived that, and we will survive this. And I believe we will heal and thrive and understand ourselves better. But getting there might not be the most fun. So let's look at some of the challenges that feel like threats during this time of pandemic, social unrest, natural disasters, and political polarization. That's quite a list. So I want to cite psychiatrist Dr. Chris Palmer, who wrote a series of articles in Psychology Today on mental health survival during the pandemic. He names a few things besides the virus itself that can be threats to our mental health. And I would like to add our spiritual health. And I'm using them as a starting point today. During this time of pandemic and social isolation, that you still say it that way, isolation, and total change of routine, some of the biggest threats to our mental health can be: one, fear, both of the coronavirus and economic fears; two, boredom and restlessness; three, loneliness; and four, depression. In the category of fear, these things might come up for you. There is news about coronavirus, political tension, natural catastrophes, and social protests and riots everywhere, all the time. If you ever tune into the news, it's pretty much what's on. You hear of every reported illness. If you're on social media, it's bound to turn into some kind of an argument somewhere. The pandemic has been politicized, religionized, and you are instantly labeled if you do or don't choose to follow specific medical guidelines. You're likely to be called an idiot, a liar, or a hoaxer, some things that some of us have never heard ourselves called before, based upon your personal beliefs and values about how to approach the situation. You're as likely to be afraid of people on the other side of your beliefs and the idea that they may become violent toward you just for what you believe. And this is at least partially because the media tends to grab the most exciting bit of news, which is usually someone freaking out over something, and we just can't get away from it. It's exhausting. In fact, if you spend too much time with the news or social media, it will feel like it's happening on every corner all the time. And we know in Unity that our subconscious does not know the difference between reality and our imagination. So I'm not here to weigh in on any of these issues and where I stand. I just want to point out the kind of stress that is generated just by our constant exposure to possible negativity. Even if you're the best at managing stress and being positive, it's such a part of the collective. It isn't even the real thing that is happening to us. For the most part, we get to pick our methods of coping and no one bothers us about it. And I would guess that most people who are surrounding you think like you do, because we tend to hang out with people who think like we do. Really, what I want us to see is how much we have in common here and how much this stress and tension is stirred up for each of us in a situation like this. And it's frequently by something or someone outside of us. And it's highly likely that someone has something to gain by keeping it going. These are unusual times. It is hard. We don't know what's coming next, and we don't know how long this will last. and there's no guidebook. The fears can feel real. People are getting deathly ill, and we do sometimes feel harsh negativity even from people we love, just for the way we choose to be. And we haven't even talked about the fears about money. We didn't have to major in economics in school to realize that our economy is facing huge, huge challenges right now. And we're not really making any of the decisions about how that goes. It's scary too. And lots of us have had income taken away, or we're watching our savings dwindle to nothing, or both. And maybe some of us don't even know how we're going to meet next month's bills, or even buy groceries or medications that we so need. So let me stop talking about the problem now. That's always my pet peeve. Let's look at some ways to make it through this. We are going to finish up with this at some point, but we, as I said, don't know when. So how do Deepak Chopra's spiritual laws help us with all these fears? There is a big factor here. And I think a few of these laws can provide some help. The law of pure potentiality deals with infinite possibilities and the elimination of fear-based thoughts. Wow, do we have a lot of those. In the state of pure consciousness, nothing is impossible. Remember the direction of Deborah Engel in her book, The Only Little Prayer You Need? She says that prayer is this: heal my fear-based thoughts. I could almost just stop talking right now, but we will continue. So fear-based thoughts are based on illusion. Fears are not reality. They live in your imagination. They have not nor are likely to happen yet. In the present moment, this is so important to grasp. Let this sink in. In this moment, I mean this very moment, sitting here, wherever you are, you have everything you need to create a wonderful life for yourself. Your life is perfect in this present moment. What better place could you be than with all these people you love, listening to words that lift you up? It's all we know that meditation, silence, non-judgment, and gratitude are on the path to healing fear-based thoughts. As far as the uncertainty of these times, Chopra would advise applying the law of detachment. In fact, he says, listen to this, this is so good for this. In detachment lies the wisdom of uncertainty, which is the fertile ground for creativity and freedom. I absolutely believe that and if you look around, you'll see it's already happening. As time goes on in a situation like this, which is so challenging, people really have to be creative to begin to live their lives on some kind of normal basis again. And they have to accept some hard facts. They have to accept some things they might not want to do. But on the other hand, people start to get really creative about how to connect, how to do fun things, how to do some things like theater, outside, social distance, date, a wonderful life. It might not be just as you planned. Things hardly ever are, but you can reconnect and start to live again. I think I shared with you before that a few months back, right before all this unfolded, I had decided, sort of out of the blue it seemed, but now I realize not so much, to let go of my preconceived ideas. I mean, This was the result of some spiritual work I had been doing with my personal coach, and it just came to me. She even seemed surprised when I said, "This is what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to let go of my preconceived ideas." It sounded almost impossible and huge. I mean, because kind of all we are is our preconceived ideas. Whoever we show up as is a preconceived idea, kind of. So it's kind of like saying, well, I'm just let go of everything. And that really kind of is what I was saying. And so it did sound impossible and huge, but the idea came with such certainty that it really was mine to do. So I have carried that with me since then. And I'm telling you, it actually really changed my whole perspective. And it's been extremely liberating. The idea that I don't have to do anything. I mean, seriously, you don't even have to do the legal things, but you will suffer circumstances for anything negative you do, but you don't have to do anything. I can completely change my course if I want, and I don't even have to meet my own previous expectations of myself. So it was so great to just let go of some of the things that have been nagging at me that perhaps I hadn't accomplished, that I thought that I had to. And I just went, no, I don't have to, or I don't have to right now. I'm just letting go of all those preconceived ideas. It gave me an incredible feeling of a fresh start, and a lightness came over me. I feel detached, and like anything can happen next. That's the joy of detachment. I believe that's what the law of detachment is about, and it's really kind of exciting. And finally, in dealing with fears, I believe the law of least effort must be considered as a resource. It's about non-resistance and accepting the truth of what is. It's about accepting the reality of not the permanence, and releasing control of the circumstances. Since we pretty much don't have control over these circumstances anyway, we might as well let go of being concerned about them and detach and believe that anything and everything we want can be ours. The next threat in this time of pandemic and isolation is boredom and restlessness. I wonder if any of you share that with me. These can be my stumbling blocks in the best of times. I can be easily bored. I tend to be a bit hyperactive if I don't burn off enough energy doing things, and especially if I don't use my mind over a period of time. But I also need diversity of activity. I have to change it up frequently. I've known this for years. And at the same time, this is how complex we can all be. At the same time, I tend to be task oriented and sometimes sit too long to the distress of my pained body just to finish a project before I leave it. So I have all kinds of tricks to get me up and moving. I have Alexa tell me to move every 45 minutes. She and I fight sometimes. But I like a lot of people during this time, lost quite a bit of income and work when the pandemic kicked in. My income was decreased by half, as well as my work. But what I think was even harder at the time, that particular one big client who was giving me so much work kept me really super busy, maybe even too busy. And I went overnight, I mean, fast, from working constantly, being way busy, and enjoying the economic results of that, to having almost nothing to do in the work realm. So I've worked from home for most of my adult career, really. I mean, I've had times when I've gone somewhere and had kind of regular office hours somewhere else, but mostly I've been a consultant, and I've been an independent contractor, and I've worked at home. And because of this, I know how easily bored I can get. And I've always had activities around the house that I can stop, take a break, and do for, for something different. But as these months moved on, I started to get really bored with some of those activities I do because everything was so different. The routine interrupted so much. And I just got tired of doing the same old thing. And what follows right after that extreme boredom and restlessness for me is insomnia, something that occurs when I have too much leftover energy. So never knowing what day it is, a bad case of cabin fever, not having enough to do, just missing people around. Even though I worked from home before, there were places to go and people to see if I wanted to. I think some of you may know what I'm talking about here. It all piled up until I found myself wandering around in my days, wanting to do something, but not liking any of my obvious choices. So what's the Chopra law for boredom and restlessness? I believe he would recommend the law of intention and desire and the law of karma, or cause and effect. The law of intention and desire is based on the fact that there is God's substance everywhere. There's nothing less boring than God's substance. I like to call it God's stuff. In fact, we're made of God's stuff. And this God's substance is energy and information with which we manifest our lives. And because we are part of the substance with our wisdom, instincts, and intuition, we can plug into the God stuff by simply giving it our attention and setting an intention. So there's the start to your way out of the boredom and restlessness. We know that what we focus on expands. So all you're thinking about is how bored you are and wandering around your house. Spend some time figuring out what you want your time with yourself to look and feel like right now. Instead of whining and complaining to yourself about how boring it is, propose an attitude or a feeling. I want to feel joy. I want to feel excited. I want to feel happy. Whatever it is, I want to feel useful. Whatever it is. And go for it. Set the intention to learn something new every day, or move at least 10 minutes every day, or make a real connection every day, or whatever it is you'd like to experience. Maybe all three of those. You could fit those all in, Any of these things can replace sheer boredom. It doesn't have to be big to make a difference. And then if you add in some application of the law of karma or cause and effect, by being more aware of the choices you have moment to moment in the field of pure potentiality, you'll start to come up with new ways to keep your life interesting in this unusual and uncertain time. The next threat is loneliness. I think that Chopra's choice for this might be the law of giving. He states that the flow of energy in the universe is a constant exchange of giving and receiving. And he says we should give what we seek. So if you're not quite sure where the groceries are going to come from next month, volunteer at a food bank or donate $5 to a nonprofit that works on eliminating food insecurity. Or volunteer at a closed school to get the lunches to families who depend on school meal program for most of their daily food. Do you get the idea? Give what you seek. You could apply it to anything. And then we come to the final threat on our mental health, to our mental health, and it's a big one. About now, after all these months of change and isolation and disconnection from all we have known to be normal, it can lead to some depression. And by the way, if you think that you or someone you love is showing signs and symptoms of clinical depression, you might want to seek some professional counseling. If you go to Psychology Today online, they have referrals for services in all states, many of which are covered by insurance or Medicare and can be done through telemed appointments. So some of the signs of depression are these: lack of motivation, difficulty making decisions, low self-esteem, guilt, irritability, anxiety, thoughts of suicide, and disturbed sleep. So if you're bordering on or have any of these going on, I think that the Chopra spiritual law that could address this is the law of dharma, or purpose in life. I think it's fair to say if you're feeling depressed, you've lost connection with, or maybe never even realized the unique talent you have to offer yourself and others. When Joseph Campbell said, "Follow your bliss," this is what he was talking about. I tell my coaching clients to do whatever lights them up. Focus on that. Give that gift to others. A friend of mine posted on Facebook a while back. He had new twin puppies. And he said, "What I learned from my puppies today, run toward the fun." And you need to do that. Run toward the fun. Another way of saying follow your bliss. Pope Francis says that we shouldn't waste this time. He says, during these difficult days, we can find small concrete gestures expressing closeness to the people closest to us. And Dr. Palmer says that having meaning and purpose has a profound effect on our health and well-being. That makes sense to me. It would certainly have to have an effect on any feelings of depression poking their way into your life. And he offers a list of questions to help you discover just what your purpose in life is. It's sometimes a challenge to figure that out. If you want these to ponder, by the way, later, and you have any trouble following them as I'm saying them now, you can either rewatch this recording online and pause while you take the notes, or you can email me at bennbe@aol.com. That's bennbe@aol.com. And I'll be happy to send you the list of these questions to help find your meaning and purpose in life. So here we go. In a nutshell, in order to begin to assess your own meaning and purpose in life, ask yourself these 8 big picture questions. 1, why are you alive? 2, who depends on you and why? 3, whom do you depend upon and why? 4, how do you help other people in your community and the world? 5, how do you take care of yourself? 6, how do you provide for yourself and your family? 7, what are you passionate about? And 8, what do you love doing? So these are the questions that will get you started on thinking about and finding your purpose in life. So there you have it. My take on how Deepak Chopra's 7 spiritual laws of success can assist us in getting through these times of challenge. The bottom line for me is this: as always, we have access to the great source of all good in the universe. In fact, we have access to the universe anytime we want, by going within to our core, where we are all medialogues. That's my new acronym for made in the image and likeness of God. We are medialogues. I love it. All spiritual laws and principles are yours automatically. Use them well. Let's take this into meditation. And so, Spirit, here we are in the midst of a very complicated time of multi-crisis. We are challenged. Some days we are totally stumped. But we know at our core, we have every spiritual tool available. We know that we have what we need to conquer our obstacles, to overcome, to survive and thrive. We know that we have each other. We're so grateful for the spirit that resides here. We pray for our country. We pray for our world. So many people in so many places, so affected. We put our arms and hearts around them. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you that we have the privilege to be here doing this right now. We so love our freedom. We live in gratitude. And so it is, and so we let it be. Thank you.
And thank you, Betty, for those insightful words. You gave us a lot to think about, and I will definitely take a look at those questions.